وبركاته. Thank you, Mossad. Most of what he said, except the fact where I graduated from, is true. But all the things are just it is from his good soul and good heart. He think of me what he said. Otherwise, the problem now, if I say anything, he said, oh, he tried to be more humble. It's kind of catched 2020. I don't know what to do. But truly, I'm just a student of knowledge who's trying to benefit his community, and I know that there is a big responsibility in the shoulder of anyone who studied the knowledge, is to share it with people and to make Islam a solution, make Islam something that people can live with, to bring them first and foremost closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to make their lives smooth. And that's, I do believe, one of the goals of Sharia is to make our hayat fil yusra. It's a smooth life. So today I was asked to speak about the transformation of the Medina society before Islam and after Islam. And I called this lecture From Yathreb to Taybah. I call it From Yathreb to Taybah. And I'll tell you why I call it that way in a little bit. But let me start by saying that there is very little we know about Medina before Muhammad migrated to it. As a matter of fact, if you look at most of the book, talk about the history of Arabia, specifically the history of Medina, everybody will start by telling you, we know very little about Medina before Islam. It's a common word and common description that I found in many scholars, like Ibn Kathir rahimahullah, for example, when you talk about Medina, and Mas'udi, al-Baghdadi, who wrote a book about Medina. Many scholars who talked about Medina said, we do have very little information about what Medina looked like, or at the time, there's not much information about Medina before the Hijrah, even though Medina itself is a very old city. It's, it's about, what, 335 something like kilometers north of Mecca, about 160 kilometers from the Red Sea. So it's a very strategic place. It's just right there on the top of the Arab Peninsula in the west side. So that's a very strategic place, and it was known to be surrounded with a lot of gardens, wells, springs, valleys, and there is a great deal of agriculture in Medina. They said in Medina, surrounded from all areas with trees and farms and gardens, except from the southeast. And if you ever go to Medina and you try to go there, you will know why, because it's a volcano like rocks, Habba. There's not really much to grow there. It used to be called the city of the carnivals, Medinatul Qawafil. Why? Because anybody will travel up to north to Syria and Sham, Bilad al-Sham, or the civilization, the money, the food, the resources, will go through Medina. And whenever they bring anything from up north down to Arabia, they go through Medina. So it was basically in the wide of people whenever they travel between Yemen all the way down south and the Arab Peninsula and Asham all the way north. You would expect a city in that strategic position will be well known in history. That's right. You will think, why would Medina wouldn't be very well known? It has agriculture, it has tribes, it has, a huge potential for trade and so forth. And my theory that the reason Medina never became so popular because it lived always in the shade of Mecca, or in the shadow of Mecca. Mecca was taking all the attention in Arab Peninsula, especially in Hijaz, this part. Mecca was basically, before Islam, Mecca was the city. When people talk about a city in that region, it will be Mecca. And it's not far away from Mecca. And Mecca used to be the heavy weight, when it comes to religious leadership. It has Al-Kaaba, which is all the Arabs, you will honor Al-Kaaba and basically submit themselves to it and consider, because the Arab at that time in our peninsula, are very heavily influenced by Deen Ibrahim alayhi salam. But what Ibrahim and Ismail left for them, it's a history. And that would make Quraysh in charge, made Quraysh, the charge of Quraysh, like, everybody admitted they are the leaders of the Arab Peninsula. Also, whenever you have that religious power in your hand, add to it politically, financially, Mecca was a very, very well-known place of trade, and even the Quran speaks about رحلة الشتاء والصيف, the carnival or the journey of the الصيف, the summer and the winter. And هناك أقوال كثيرة what that means, the journey of the winter and the summer. Some people, the famous one, basically in the winter they go to Yemen, and in the summer they go to Sham. But you'll find also إنما كان كلتا رحلتين إلى الشام. Both of the journeys used to go to Sham. Also some said they used to do 2 trips in the summer and in the winter to Al-Ta'if and to Syria. Okay, and it's been also said to Yemen and to Syria. So it's well known, the trade, the people, when they come to Arab Peninsula, they go straight to Mecca because that's where Kaaba. And that's why I don't think Medina get a lot of attention because of that. Qatada said something interesting about Mecca to show you the difference. كانوا يرحلون تجارا آمنين. The people of Mecca have something no other tribe ever had in Arabia at that time. And listen to what Qatada said. He said, لا يخافون شيئا لحرمتهم ولا تقدر العرب على شيء من هذا. They used to travel, and their carnival, or their caravans, when they travel to bring the trade from north or from south, whatever it is, as long as people know this is Mecca's caravan, nobody touch it. It's a sacred, it's respected. Qatada said, and none of the Arab can claim such right. Nobody can have that security and safety like the people of Quraysh. And because of that, maybe the Prophet ﷺ said, الناس تبع لقريش في الخير والشر كفارهم تبع لكفارهم ومؤمنهم تبع لمؤمنهم. That the Nabi ﷺ said, people follow Quraysh. Stating the fact, people follow Quraysh. And that's because of that position, political positions and leadership that they have. Can you imagine after everybody saying Medina lived in the shadow of Mecca, is not well known, nobody knew much about it, in just a matter of decades, Medina became the most important and the most well-documented city and history of city in the history of our religion. And I would say even in the world. It became, at that time, it is the most important city in the world. During the Khulafa al-Rashidun time, it's the capital of the Muslim world until Ali ibn Abi Talib for the first time moved it to Al-Kufa for political reasons that maybe you are familiar with, but that's not the time for it. But my point is, in few years, Nabi Sallallahu managed to transfer Medina to be something completely different. A place where scholars come from all over the world to live. People travel to it from a great deal of distance just to live in Medina. It is a place where so many leaders came out of that city to rule the world later on. It was as Anas radiallahu anhu Allah said in Sunan Tirmidhi, لما دخل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم المدينة أضاء منها كل شيء. The day that the Prophet entered Medina, it was filled with light. Filled with light. And that light is spread all over the world. In order for us to appreciate the transformation of Medina, let's see how Medina started. Let's take the story from the beginning. And before I go into this brief historical background, I want to make sure to make a point very clear. When we talk about the transformation of the society, it does not necessarily mean that the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came and changed everything. Because believe it or not, there's a lot of things good, a lot of good things people already have. In another word, sometimes we think Islam means that he raised you like reformat. Reformat a computer, wipe everything, then you start building it. That's not how it is. That's not how it works. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إنما بعثت لأتمم مكارم الأخلاق. I was sent to complete your good manner. So he recognized that people have a lot of goodness in them. And he come to add to whatever goodness they have, whatever good thing that they have. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came to add to it. And that's a very important concept when we talk about transformation of any society or any community. That we should not just expect that everything that people do, or any group or any individual, they're completely doomed, they're completely bad. There is goodness in everyone. And we should look into that good thing that they have and we build upon it. And we use it to increase the goodness in them. We should not look at society as doomed and so dark and so gloomy. We should be very optimistic when we deal with society at large. Also, that shows you that this concept that I hear it a lot of time, especially people live in this part of the world, in this time, a lot of people have a resistance to any type of culture, heritage. They think culture is always bad, it's always bad. Yeah, we don't want Arab culture, we don't want Turkish culture, we don't want Malaysian culture, we don't want Pakistani culture. As if this whole thing is bad, that's not true. Sometimes culture are embedded in it a lot of good things that can help you to develop that society and to develop people. So this complete rejection to culture is unacceptable, and the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam didn't do that with the culture that he saw. But any culture that is bad and wrong, and Islam will come and oppose it and change it. And say, hey, you can't do that, that's not allowed. And anything that need to be put guidelines for it, guidelines will be put for it. So how the story started? It started more than 1,600 years before the day the Prophet entered Medina. I'll say that again. The story started 1,600 years before Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam walked into Medina. The story of Medina started that early. Yes. Some historians said the history of Medina go to 1,600 prior to Hijrah. And Assyrian, Ashuriyin, they talked about Al-Medina. And that's 6th century before the birth of Jesus. 6 centuries before the birth of Jesus. They talked about the city, it's called the city which is referred to Medina. Even though there's a very famous, a rock that has writing on it from the time of the Assyrians, known as Nubu Nin. And those, if you Google it and you'll look at it, you will see that there is a mention of a city in the north of Arabia, near the sea, by the name of Yathreb, which is Yathreb as we know today. As a matter of fact, there is also trace of the word Yathreb used by Greek. And very ancient Greeks that they mentioned the word Yathreb, referring to the city of the Prophet ﷺ. Like, for example, among the people who talked about the famous philosopher, Greek philosopher, we call him in Arabic Mus, or in English we call him Pythagoras. So he talked about a city called Yathreb, okay, which is referring to Yathreb. And it's been said that the city of Medina, Yathreb, was actually occupied by one of the sons of Noah, who left after the after the great flood, who stayed there and lived there. So some historians mention that, like Ibn Kathir rahimahullah and others. But what we know for sure, among the oldest civilization that lived in Medina were the Jewish community, who came to Medina in a very long time. And as well, a very famous Arab tribes called Al-Aws and Al-Khazraj, which is Al-Ansar later on. Jews lived in Medina before the Arabs, Al-Aws and Al-Khazraj, came, particularly these two tribes, came to Medina. And in Medina, some scholars said there were 10 Jewish tribes lived in Medina. And they were mentioned by name, these 10 Jewish tribes, in something known in history and Sirah as Wathiqatul Medina, the Treaty of Medina that the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam wrote with the Jews. He mentioned 10 tribes among the Jews who lived there. And among the 10, 7 of them became Muslims. 7 in هذه القبائل أسلمت. They became Muslims, such as Bani Auf, Bani Najjar. They're originally Jews, and they became Muslims. And 3 stayed on Judaism, like Bani Qaynuqa, Bani Nadir, or Bani Qurayza. And big portion also, or number of these 3 tribes converted to Islam. Some even historians like the Samhudi mentioned that there were 20 plus tribes, not 10, 20 plus tribes among the Jews lived there. And there is a debate, I don't think we need to go into it here, are these Arab descent, like they are Arab originally, or they came from Bani Israel, or the children of Israel, or belong a lineage to the Israelites. There is a debate among them. There is some tribes for sure traced back to the Israelites, like Bani Qaynuqa. And Ibn Hajar rahimahullah said, they are hum min dhurriyyat Yusuf alayhi salam. The Bani Qaynuqa, they go back to the children of Prophet Yusuf, Joseph alayhi salam. And no doubt they became part of the Arab culture. They speak Arabic. They even Bani Qaynuqa were distinguished that they read in Torah in Hebrew, while most of other Jews used to read it in Arabic, or this is their language. Why did Jews live in Medina? How Jews came to Medina? There is multiple opinions among scholars. And also that's an important element in our lecture today. The most famous opinion, that they came to Medina when Musa alayhi salam gave an order to basically to the Israel, or the follower of his among the Jews, to fight basically a tribes which is the children of al-Amaliq. And these are min Arab al-Badiya, among the Arabs, Bedouins who lived in a region north of Arabia, in Arabia, and they were pagans at that time, and they were opposing Musa alayhi salam. And there is multiple fights took place between Musa alayhi salam and those tribes. So Musa alayhi salam have sent a group of his soldiers after them, and then referring to the Amaliyah, and they were living in north of Arabia. And where he told them, when you reach their village, do not leave a single one of them, kill them all. اقتلوهم جميعا. Anyone who reached the age of puberty should be killed. Anyway, so they did that, but one of them was already an adult, but he was a young man that they felt bad to kill him. And he was one of the children of their leaders. So they said, we're not going to kill him, we're going to take him as a slave. And they went back to Prophet Musa alayhi salam, and by the time they arrived to Musa alayhi salam, he was dead. And they told their leaders at that time what they have done, that they did not follow the order. So the Israelites at that time, and they said, we're never going to allow you to be part of us because you disobeyed Musa. And if you disobey Musa again, God will put the curse on us again. As we know, they stay 40 years lost in the desert because they didn't follow the command of Musa, so they don't want the curse to go back to them. So they said, you can't be part of our community. And they kicked them out. And those are the people who decide to say, okay, let's go back to where we came from. this land at least we conquered and we killed the leaders and we easily to live there. And that's where they came back to Medina and they lived in it. And so that's one of the most famous opinion among the historian, and I'm talking about Muslim historians, in referring to why Jews lived in Medina. Another famous opinion as well, and there's multiple narrations give you kind of indication, even in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that this could be also the reason, which is that they heard from their scholars after the death of Musa ﷺ that there is a prophet who will come from Arabia. And that prophet who will come from Arabia will carry the same message of Musa. Okay? And they looked at the description of the place where he's coming from, and it matched exactly what is Medina or Yathreb is. So for them, they went and they waited for this prophet to appear, thinking that he will be one of them. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have given the children of Israel an honor nobody ever can match it, which is that he made the prophethood in their lineage. So since Ibrahim alayhi salam, all the prophets and messengers that we at least aware of are from the children of Israel, are from his lineage. So they thought that this will continue until the day of judgment, that any prophet has to be one of us. And that's why there is a lot of conflict happen against Muhammad ﷺ, because he does not descend from a Jewish background or a Jewish family. They rejected that. They were very angry. How can this traditions for hundreds of thousands of years will be, or hundreds of years will be now changing? Anyway, so that's the reason they came to Medina, and they were waiting for that prophet to come or to appear, because they know that he will settle there. So among them, a man by the name Al-Nudayr came and he settled there, and he lived with the Arabs who used to live in Medina at that time. But the Arabs who lived in Medina at that time were, as I said, there's no really big history about them. They're just few tribes here and there, mainly from Najd, came and lived and settled in that part of Al-Hijaz. And Banu Nadir, Banu Qurayza, they came and they settled in Medina, and that's how they started it. Also, some other students said, no, actually Jews came to Medina after the destructions of Jerusalem by the hand of the Babylon, the great king of Babylon, Bukhtanasar. This is 587 years, basically, before the birth of Isa alayhi salam. And what he did, he took all the Jews to Babylon, to Iran. And few managed to escape. And those who escaped, they went to Medina because it's far away from that empire to reach. And that's why they ended up there. Some said no. Actually, and Yaqut al-Hamawi said that. He's a very famous historian, Muslim historian. He said Jews came to Medina after the Romans destroyed Jerusalem. Jerusalem, or Judah, which is the state of the Jews at that time, it used to be under the Roman by name, but they are completely independent. But after a while, they found that the Romans have a civil war among themselves. The grip was losing a little bit on Jerusalem, so what the Jews did, they broke the treaty with the Romans. They declared a state again for themselves, completely independent. As usual, the Romans, have a peace with each other, and they figure out their problems. Then they go and turn against those people who in Jerusalem broke the treaty. So they came and they destroyed Jerusalem. They destroyed the temple. They destroyed their masajid. They destroyed their place of worship. And many of them escaped to save their life, and some of them ended up in Medina. That's what Hamawi said in regard to the history. I always believe that there's no need for us to choose one. It could be all these together. It could be all these reasons together have led to multiple migrations happen to that place. So here, that they came in a very early time, and they were very good in constructing cities. So they came with something in Arabia not known. It's called Al-Atan. Al-Atan it's basically like castles, which has very high walls, protected, and archers on the top of it, and they built these structures in Medina, and there were so many of them, maybe 60, 70 of them. So every big family will live inside one, and they protect themselves because they always feel that they will be attacked again. Can you imagine after this, what happened in Jerusalem by the king of Babylon or the Romans or whatever? They were worried about that. Also, they dig a lot of wells. They start the agriculture business in Medina, and they made a lot of treaties with the Arabs who lived there. And the most important Arabs who lived there, two big tribes called Aus and Khazraj, who's later on going to be Al-Ansar. Where they came from. And Al-Khazraj and Khazraj are originally from this part of the world? No. Al-Aus and Khazraj came from Yemen. And they are both Al-Aus and Khazraj are brothers. Al-Aus and Khazraj is a man, his name is Al-Aus Al-Khazraj. They both basically brothers, and they belong to basically same father, Haritha. And they are the sons of Haritha, Al-Anqa. Al-Anqa, this is their mother, the name of their mother. This is the Arab way until today. العرب ينسبون إلى الأم أحيانا يقول يا أخت فلانة أنا أخت نورة وأنا أخت كذا يعني يفتخرون بهذا. It's a kind of Arab culture that they mention he's the son of such and such woman, he's a sister of such and such woman. It's a common way that the Arab used in the past, and some areas are still today. Anyway, it was called Anqa. Anybody knows what's an Anqa? Why would you call it Anqa? Anqa طائر كذا بس. العنقاء لأنه معناه طويل العنق. Yeah, basically العنقاء from the عنق, which is the neck. She has a very long neck. A lady with a long neck, so we call her an anqa, the lady with a neck. Anyway, they call Al-Aus al-Khazraj Bani Qila, referring to this woman. Al-Aus is a man. You know what Al-Aus means? Aus means al-atiyah, the gift. Okay? Wal-Khazraj means al-rih al-barida, the cool wind. So he named his two sons, one after, the breeze, the cool breeze. And the other one basically, al-atiyah, or the gift. Very positive meaning. And that's what Suhaili for all the earth said, rahimahullah. They came from Yemen, and the reason for them to move from Yemen, because in Yemen, they used to have a very big dam, it's called Saddu Ma'rib, the dam of Ma'rib. And they lived in Saba, and the Quran speaks about those people. Great civilization. They used to travel long journeys without worry about any troubles or anyone harm them. They lived the life, as we say. They lived the life. Very powerful civilization. To the extent that they said, everything is near. We don't need to travel anywhere. You want fruits, you want vegetables, you want anything you want, it's just right around us. So one day he said, Allahumma ba'id bayna asfarina. We would like to have long distance between us and the thing that we want. The people may go against themselves. Ya Allah, let us travel a great deal of distance to be able to get our stuff. فَمَزَّقَهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have made these tribes all over the world after that, all over the place. And it is basically been said, كانت المرأة تخرج بمنزلها لا تتزوج شيئا. A woman will travel by herself. She doesn't need to take water, food, provision, anything. She just go on and she will find everything around her. That's how good life they have. Until one day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have made this dam to collapse, and before it collapsed, tribes managed to leave Yemen because they know if this dam collapse, the whole entire country will be destroyed. So, Turayfa bint Rabi'a, she was like a fortune teller type of woman, kahina. Okay? And she's married to a very famous leader among the Arab at that time, his name Amr.